Okay guys, we're going to take a look at, in this video, we're going to take a look at creating an embroidery file from a SVG file. And what I specifically mean by that is an SVG that was not designed with embroidery in mind or Inkstitch in mind. Either you found the SVG online, freesvg.org such, that's where I got these from, freesvg.org, or you got you created an SVG file a couple of years ago before you found out about Inkstitch, and now you think you want to turn that into an embroidery file. Yes, it can be done. And Inkscape deals specifically with SVGs, so any SVG can be turned into an embroidery file, but there are certain things that you have to make sure you're aware of. Number one, if you're dealing with SVG image, it probably has a lot of color layers on top of each other, and you don't want more than 2 or 3 fills on top of each other in embroidery, because you'll start breaking needles, you'll start breaking threads because the stitching is becoming too thick. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at something real simple, this C++ image. It doesn't get any simpler than that. It will just embroider this little black outline car. That entire thing is one path. I'm sure it's not done with just one. It was probably several paths and then they combined it. So you don't know what you're getting into when you're dealing with SVG images that somebody else made. So we're going to go through all 5 of these. I'm going to go from right to left. I have a reason for that. And if I don't know if you know, but in case you don't, you can right click on an SVG file and you can open it with a text document. So the good thing about that is it'll tell you, it might tell you what it was designed in. And for this one, this was designed using CorelDRAW 2017. Inkscape doesn't like to deal with SVGs that are not designed in Inkscape. So that can cause a problem. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will. The best way to get around that is to import it. So for that particular wolf vector, I'm going to load up Inkscape. And if you don't know, we'll look at a couple of the other ones, and a couple of them don't say what it was written in. If you don't know, if you want to be on the safe side, always import your SVG just to make sure. You should always set your document size, the size that you want it, the size that you need for embroidery. This one should be a 4x4. Yes, it is. So this would be like a pocket. You could make it 5x7. I usually default by 4x4 and adjust accordingly. So on this one, I'm going to go ahead and import that wolf. By importing the wolf, I am getting rid of any cruft that CorelDRAW 2017 left behind. So I want it to be in my 4x4 area. I'm going to lock it down so that it's the size that I need it to be. Make a nice pocket or a nice hat. Be a nice cool hat design, actually. May do that one at some point. I like that. Okay. So the first thing that you need to do, especially when you're dealing with SVGs that were not designed with Inkstitch in mind, is always troubleshoot it. Because there's probably going to be problems. Not necessarily going to be, but there probably is going to be. So we're going to take a look at troubleshoot. And it's going to tell us that it has several errors. We have unconnected. We have border crossing itself. The awesome thing about Inkstitch, get rid of that troubleshoot layer. The fabulous thing about Inkstitch is one command will probably fix it all. We'll go Inkstitch, fill tools, break apart, fill objects. It is defaulting to complex. It's actually the first time I've seen Inkstitch do that. So apparently it thinks it needs to use the complex method. So we'll run with that. We're going to go with that. All right, so it says it's done already. That was actually really quick. And let's see what we have. We have a lot of, okay, so I'm just going to run troubleshoot again real quick. Inkstitch, troubleshoot objects. Excellent. So just one command, that's all it took. And this will embroidery. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you want to, because you need to look at how it's layered out. And what I mean by that is what we're going to do. Okay, this first rect right here, I think is just background. It is. I'm going to go ahead and delete that right off the bat. That leaves pretty much just the wolf design. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to select one of these paths. I'm going to hit Control A for all, and I'm going to hide everything. I'm going to select the bottom one. I always select the bottom one because it should be the biggest background area, and we're going to start unhiding these as we go up, because we're looking for stitching to be on top of stitching to be on top of stitching. That's what we're concerned about. Too much of that, you will break needles, you will break thread. It's okay to have a couple, 3 if you really need it. If it really needs to be there, it will probably be okay. Any more than that, you really need to not. Right now, we don't have anything on top of anything. Nice little background outline. There's a little bit on top of there, but if it's a fill and then another fill that is beside but overlays a little bit, that's okay. And a lot of times you want that to make it look really nice. So we're going to keep going up. That's the other ear. That's a piece of the mouth, I guess. Some of the head design. There's an eyeball. There's another eyeball. And okay, see, I don't know if you, I'm going to zoom in. Hopefully you can see that. But this one right here is that extra little bit of eye. I don't want that in my stitching. It's just going to add another color. It's a small area to fill. It's just not going to add much to my end stitch. So I'm going to leave that one hidden. After I go through them all and I decide what I want to keep and what I don't want to keep, I'm going to delete all of them that I left hidden. So right now we're going to leave that unhidden and that one hidden. So let's keep going. We've got our major background black coloring. Part of the outline of the eye, I like that. We're going to leave that. Around the eyeball, we're going to leave that. Okay, down here. So right now, what's coming up is this little tiny fill right here. Yeah, right there. I don't want that. That's just adding a little extra. It's a very small fill. It's just more area that can foul up in the machine. So that's the same thing. That's the same. A little bit of extra shadow up there. I'm going to leave that hidden and leave that hidden. So right now, everything that's hidden still, we're going to delete. So I selected the first one, and then I'm going to go down here to the bottom where that one's hidden. I select everything in between, and from there, I'm going to press the control button and single select anything else that's hidden. Now I'm just going to hit right click and delete. So this is a finished, ready to stitch item. Everything's a fill, which is probably okay on this design. But let's have a look at it and see what it looks like. I really like that wolf. I'll speed this up. We've got a couple of colors not in the same group together. I'll show you how to fix that just real quick. And of course, if your machine will recognize Inkstitch trim command, you'd want to put that in too, possibly. So, other than that, that wolf looks really cool. Let's see what the realistic looks like. All right, so that is the realistic look, and we're going to take a screenshot of that. Save as. So there's one down. I like that. All right. So like I said, we're going to I'm just going to delete it all, delete everything, start over, because I'm going to import another one. Okay, what is the next one? The next one is the C++. This would actually make a really good hat too. So I'm going to go ahead and import anytime you don't know. And I did say I was going to look at it. So let's take a look at it in document viewer. And it says, it doesn't say what it was made with. So that's a pretty good likelihood that you can just open this and be fine. I still want to import it because if you open it, it's going to open it document size, whatever it is. If I import it, it's going to keep my 4x4 hoop size that I'm trying to work with. So I'm just going to go ahead and import it so that I can keep that. C++. Hit OK. Leave everything default. The lock is on. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. All right. So this, I expect, is one path. Yes. And this, I expect, should be able to embroider just like it is. It'd make a good hat. Make a good pocket. Somebody in your life that's a programmer, make sure they like C++ first, because if they use C, they probably don't. Just how it works. And we should be able to go ahead and I'm just going to go straight into the visualize. So the point of this file is the simpler it is, the more likely it is it's just going to work. The more complex it is, the more likely that it's just not going to work. And there is caveats to that too. You'll see in a minute. So there's our C++. If you really wanted to get down and make it a really nice, take the C and the plus, turn those into white satin stitches with that black background. That would look really nice. Other than that, not going to spend a lot of time on this one. I'm going to go right ahead and go right into another one. Again, these are all some that I downloaded. I didn't do any of these. This car is interesting. Open with document viewer, in my case, Kate. Again, it doesn't say what. Okay, it doesn't. And I'm at the limit of the file, but it doesn't tell me at the beginning what made it. So I'm just going to do the same import. Just when in doubt, go ahead and import it. Import on defaults should be fine. My lock is locked, so I'm going to shrink it down. This one's actually a little bit too much for a pocket, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and make it a 5x7, width 7, height 5, and we'll make it. We'll work with this one in a 5x7 hoop. Okay, so again, first thing to do, okay, look at under the objects. This entire thing is one path. That's very interesting. And it had to be done piece by piece, and then it was joined, I guess, but it's not going to work that way. So I'm going to go ahead and, knowing that it's going to have to be broke apart, I'm going to go straight in, do a fill tools, break apart objects. Probably leave it on complex. I don't know if it's on complex because it thinks it needs it, or because that was the last one, the last command that I did on it. So we're going to leave it on complex. So after it does its break apart, you see that we no longer have one object layer. We have many. So just like in the other one, okay, first thing we need to do is I'm going to drag across to make sure that everything's selected. Grab the extensions Inkstitch and Troubleshoot just to make sure. After that break apart, it should be good, but we'll make sure. Okay, all shapes are valid. So again, same thing as last time. We already have everything highlighted, so we're going to hide everything. We're going to start at the bottom and work our way up just like we did the other one. So that first object, that bottommost object, which is the first object to be stitched, has a lot going on for sure. So we're going to just work our way up. There's a lot of things on here. If I really wanted to make this piece right, I would keep this bottom shadow area and everything else, maybe, well, with the exception of the grill here, but I think everything else I would just run as a straight stitch. Just outline straight stitch. I think that would look really cool. I would manually rewrite or redraw a whole lot of this piece. But we're just going to take a look at what's already working here. Okay, that one little line, I don't like that. I don't like that. That's a door handle. Yeah. There's a lot of little tiny fills on this that's just bad. Little extras. Little unnecessary extras. But you have to make that decision while you're setting up your piece. See that little tiny mark right there? That little tiny spot right there is what that's not, your machine's not going to like that, just to put a few stitches in and then move off to the next piece. That's not good. So this car would need a lot of redesign, honestly. As simple as this car is, this is actually the worst one that we've had to look at yet. So I think I'm going to stop right there. I think a lot of that extra is just fluff. The door handle, that's another line. That's the little Chevy looking emblem on the front. That's another line. See, a lot of those, almost all those lines I would turn into straight stitches. Yeah. All right, we are going to take a look at what this looks like and simulate. Speed it up. 6,551, but you see there's a lot down here on the bottom that didn't get done. I don't know why that is. Let's have a look at it. Interesting. Just to make sure, we'll do a quick troubleshoot. Maybe it didn't stitch out for some reason. It says it's valid. We're going to take a look at it, see what we've got in. There's no fill. Okay, so there is fill. Interesting. But there's no stroke, right? What happens if I no fill? Okay. Interesting. Okay, so no stroke. Give it a fill. All black. Should be there. I am on that one object alone. Let's try it one more time. And like I said, this piece I would probably 75% of it I'd probably redo manually on my own anyway. Being a black and white stitch, it wouldn't take long. All right, we have even less stitches now. 2,771. Interesting. I really don't know. This one's long enough. It is time to move on. That one's a fail. So far we've had one fail. That's definitely a fail. All right, next one. We're going to look at that bow and arrow. So file, import. bow and arrow. Okay. Let's bring it back up. Open it with Kate. That one was actually created in Inkscape by the looks. Yep. Created with Inkscape. There you go. Still wasn't created with Inkstitch in mind. Keep that in mind. So, what have we got here? I'm going to set my hoop size back to 4x4. And then we're going to, that's already locked in. We're going to just scoop this down. All right. So, first thing to do, go into the objects, select that object, and then we're going to do a Inkstitch troubleshoot. And it comes back as all shapes are valid. How about that? Awesome. There's a lot of detail in here that you don't want to turn into a stitch file. It is, that entire thing is able to stitch. And we're going to do a visualize and see how many stitches we've got. That should be a lot. I see lots of stitching on top of stitching on top of stitching. All right, so we have 15,216 stitches, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're only doing a 4x4 little pocket thing and it's mostly a line art, yeah, that's a lot. So we're going to zoom through this. I'm seeing a lot of layers on top of layers here. It's not bad. Click realistic. So that's our realistic look. It looks really nice. Realistic probably won't come out quite that good. However, here's the thing to do. We're going to do this little trick again. I'm going to select one of these, click Control All to select all. We're going to hide everything. Start with that bottom layer. Unhide that bottom layer. It's the yellow string. And then the highlight on the yellow string. We're going to leave that highlight turned off. Next one is part of the feathers on the arrow. And then the highlight for the feather on the arrow. So pick one. We either want to keep the highlight or the feather or the highlight. And I think I'm going to opt to keep the feather. So it should be every other one. Okay, so it's going to be every other one. Theoretically, it will move on to the side. Okay. What's the next one? Oh, another highlight. Okay. Okay, now we're getting into building the bow part. So there's a layer. There's another layer. And there's a third layer. But just on that half of the bow, we have 3 layers, 3 filled layers on top of each other. That's not good. So I'm going to opt out for 2 of those. We're just going to leave the basic border outline of the main one and not do the others. So there's a string and the highlight on that string. So leave the highlight off. String, highlight, string, and should be highlight. What's next? Another highlight, another highlight, another highlight. That highlight is way down here. Where was it? Right there. That's those. So you have 3 layers of the wooden bow, and then you have 3 layers on top of that of the wraparound yellow string. That's 6 layers of fill. that would definitely break something. Thread, probably. Needle, maybe. So yeah, be careful with all those layers stitching on top of each other. Don't really want that. Okay, so what is that? That's the other side. And we're going to leave the highlights of the bow off, just like before. And same thing with the yellow. And then we should have 3 yellow highlights on top of that. And what's next? Okay. Okay, so there's the handle. And the handle, if I remember right, had 3 layers on top of it too. It does. We'll leave that off. There's our arrow shaft. Don't need that. That is right down here at the bottom. Is just, I don't know why it's there. That just doesn't need to be there. And the arrow itself, and then highlight on the arrow. So that's where we're at. All right. So all those things that are hidden will no longer stitch. We don't have to delete them to not stitch them. That's a good thing. So if you remember, I had 15,000 stitches. Let's see what we have now. Okay, so now we have 7,634 stitches. Your machine will thank you. I promise you. Let's stitch this out, see what it looks like. It's not going to look quite as good as the other one because it doesn't have all that extra highlighting on it. I think it's going to look just fine and dandy. Let's click realistic. I don't like the yellow and then black, brown, yellow, brown, red, yellow. So I would definitely group those colors together. That looks pretty good. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with going back and putting in one of those highlights. You could do that. But I'm going to call that one done because I'm saving what I think is going to be the trickiest one for last. The trickiest one for last, I think, is going to be the old Chevy. That's the one that I'm looking at. Can you imagine that, an old Chevy across the front of a hat? Sweet. All right, let's see. Also created an Inkscape. Nice. Go Inkscape. We're still going to pull it in. I'm going to pull it in as a 5x7 though. Go back to the 7, 5, and I don't remember off the top of my head what a hat is. It's like a 4 high, and I don't remember. Anyway, something I can worry about later. Import the car. The car. Ah. My lock is locked. I'm going to shrink it down so we can work with a 5x7 area. Break it down a little more in a minute to crank it back up. Okay. The car. So, first thing to do. What's the first thing we do? Yes, it is. Very good, boys and girls. We are going to do a troubleshoot. Wow. So, same thing with the bow and arrow. Just because it can stitch doesn't mean it's actually a good idea to stitch what you have here. And what I'm going to do, go into Inkstitch. We're going to do a stitch plan preview and hit apply. Okay, hit close on that. There's our stitch preview. Doesn't look quite the same. Still looks cool, but just not the same, is it? All right. Drop our stitch plan down, and we have 51 color blocks. You know what that means? That means you have 51 times you're going to have to change color. Color of thread, unless you've got a 51 needle machine, which I don't have. All right, so we've got a lot of work to do on this one. Yes, we do. So get rid of that stitch plan, hit delete. Okay, same thing. Hit one of them objects, control all, and hide. We're gonna, and right here, these are the tires. Yes. Let's go ahead and do what we can with the tires. What have we got with the tires? So come down through here, close them out. One at a time. Tire outline. It's not going to be that nice pretty color. It's going to be black thread. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. I think I'm going to keep that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Okay, so everything else is gone in the tire. And let's do the other tire the same way. Keeping that. No, no, no. Keep. No, no, and no. Okay. Okay, so we have our tires done. We're going to leave those tires visible while we look at the rest of the car. Okay, so that, unhiding that, is this piece right here. I'm going to leave that hidden for the moment. We're going to make a decision later on. Right now, that piece is more or less the bottom body shadow. We're going to leave that visible. We got our tires already. What's next? A piece of the fender. Leave that hidden. Leave that hidden. We're going to leave that shown for the moment. Leave that showing for the moment. Now, on this one, where'd it go? That one. Okay, see how there's visibility through there like glass would be because the opacity is down. You cannot simulate that in stitching other than setting the params so that you're really light on the density so that you can see through the stitching. I'm going to leave it there for now. We're going to pay more attention to it later. This is the main body of the car. This is probably the most important part. And that all by itself, just like that, looks pretty good. Okay, what's it look like? Might end up being something like that. But we'll go a little further. That might be something to do as a satin stitch later on. I would like to have at least some kind of a resemblance of a bumper, wouldn't we? Let's keep going. I'm going to leave that main bumper there, but all that extra fluff, window dressing, it's got to go. I really need that. That's probably going to be something that later on I would add as a satin stitch, maybe. And that would be a straight stitch. All these little straight lines that are coming up, that little highlight's got to, yeah, don't need that. All those straight lines I would do like that. I would do that as just a straight line stitch because I don't know if it's going to be a straight line or not. Depends on how whoever drew this did it. If they did it as a straight line, then we can turn it real easy into a straight stitch. I'm going to leave those because I want them to be there. Some of this I can't see until I've done it a few times. Yeah, we need brake lights, don't we? Brake lights and brake bumper, so And that looks like an exhaust. Torn. On the back, it's got to be on the front, right? Not quite what we started out with, but with a little bit of work, that doesn't look too bad. Now let's go down to I want that stitch, because we're going to go in there. We're going to go into rams, and we're going to set the density really light so that we can see through it. Spacing between rows, we're going to set 50. Including the underlay, we're going to stitch length is ×3. So, okay, I'll leave that. Let's see what that looks like. So we're going to go straight into what we have here and see what it looks like. Okay, so we have, wow, 38,000 stitches, and there's not enough red in this line for what we created. So I don't think something's not going to be right here. Where's my red body, man? Red body's a black body. Why is that? Even the bumpers are black. What? Why? Why? Okay, so let's just click on that body right there. Is that the body? Yes, that's the body. Why is that? Why is that so tall? It doesn't need to be that tall, you know? Okay, I'm going to put a couple in between there. I'm going to run that down a little bit. Okay. I like that. I got to get my red back. I need to click on the red body. We have the red body highlighted. Let's click on a red down here. Trying to find a matching red. Something that somebody else made is lots of fun. What if I do that? Maybe. So if we go into params, yeah, it's red. Extensions Inkstitch params. It should give us a red preview. Did it not? Outstanding. Hit apply and quit. All right, let's go back in there and see what we got. See this one here. And this one here is a little bit of a problem too, because it's a fill over a fill. I don't think there's too many fills going on, I hope. But let's see what we have now. Let's visualize. All right, 36,000 stitch count. Considering the detail on that, that's probably about right. But look at the long little red bar right here. We've got our red body back. I'm going to zoom this along a whole bunch. Okay, see, we fixed the red, but we still have pretty much all these other things are still a problem. So let's fix those real quick. These are black. These are turning, the bumper's turning out black because it's a very, what do you call that? It goes from one color to another. I can't remember the name of it, but Inkstitch doesn't like that. So we're going to change that to a more solid color. I just figure out what solid color. That's not too bad. Okay, we're going to go with that. And I also need to do those too. Set that the same color as the bumper. Set that to the same color as that bumper. And then this must be the same thing as why it's doing that. So we need to change that to a color. And that should do it. Basically, all we're doing is just making sure that everything is a solid color. Let's do another preview. This, I'm about to call this one done, but this one still needs a lot of work done to it to make it really right. It's stitchable as it is, but it would take a little bit of time and effort to really put it over the top. All right, same number of stitches, that's fine. We got some fender flare color here, so maybe we're getting there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Not bad. So that's what our realistic looks like. That looks really pretty good. Man, that looks really good. I'm actually really happy with that. I'm going to turn the density of the window down a little bit more so that it's just a little bit more see-through. Man, that looks pretty good. I'm really happy with that. I'm going to put a black border on that bumper or take it off of back here. I'm not sure which. A few jump stitches that I'd like to go away. Other than that, it looks really good. I am going to keep working on this. Alright, guys, check this out. Check this out. I did keep on working on this. I'm actually recording the next day after work, but I did work on it for about another hour. I want to show you what all I did. So I'm going to clear everything out just like I did before and work its way back up and show you what I did. I did a whole bunch of differences cutting away. I'm going to show a link right here in the video that shows you how to do cutaway when you have too many layers on top with difference. Okay, so as I'm bringing these back into view, you'll notice that there's almost no fill over fill. That is at least unnecessary anyway. So when I difference this out, this is all that's left of that black underneath. Little piece on the side. There's a tire. There's a tire. Far fender. A little bit of the inside. Some more of the inside. And I did have to do a break apart after I broke them into different sections. I did have to do a break apart for Inkstitch to be happy. But Love how this come out. And just gonna keep bringing it into view, and all these lines, zoom way in, all these lines you can see that are dotted now. I did turn those into straight stitches just like I threatened to do, and looks really nice. One thing that I would need to do actually now is do a duplicate of the line layers so that I can make them their own. But yeah, that's what it looks like now. Let's go ahead and run a visual so you can see what it looks like now. And the last thread count we had was 36,000. So let's see what it is now. Thread stitch count now is 26,000. Took significant amount of stitches out of it. You can see that it's still jumbled up mess when it comes to the colors, and want to group those together. The way I'm thinking about it in my head, I'd still have to have a black at the beginning and black at the end, but all the other colors should be grouped together. I'm gonna zoom this ahead really quick. Still a couple of jump stitches. That's what the stitch preview looks like. Let's see what the realistic looks like. There's your final product. It looks absolutely amazing. I am really happy with that. And the simulated see-through windows, the way I got that, which turned out really nice, is I actually set the params on it. Density 0.75. So it's really light density. 0.75 spacing between rows, and default's 0.25. So I really put that spacing quite far apart. That allows that see-through. The stitches are far enough apart to be able to see the stitching behind it. So it gives it that kind of windowish glass-like see-through effect. But other than that, I love this one. This one's a keeper. I'm going to put this on a hat at some point in time, I'm pretty sure. So until next time, thanks for watching.